Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Wire2Wire Sports Podcast. I am your overlaid host. Come on, brother. Let's go.
I was going to say, it's the best the show's ever looked.
Exactly. Listen, cover my face. That works. I'm good with it. To my upper left corner, I got Kent State's own, Cleveland's own, College Cottrell. How you feeling tonight, brother?
I'm feeling good. It's another great week of sports. I'm glad we finally get to talk about some more sports today. Yesterday, NBA decided to just take the day off, and I'm ready to get back into it.
Selection day, my friend.
I get it, but I'm just saying, me being the sports guy that I am, just wasn't quite the same.
You could have watched the Flyers give the San Jose Sharks their first win. Alex was happy about the 0-10 Sharks beat the Flyers last night in Philadelphia. It was fun. Joke. You guys wonder why I don't like hockey. But in the upper right corner, got Scholastic Shally, Uncle Shally, the fan of the biggest cheaters we've ever seen since the New England Patriots. Straight from a Belichick tree, Bill Shallcross.
Now you sound like Paul Feinbaum.
I can sound like anybody.
Exaggerating everything.
Michigan will never be in a college football playoff again. They're going to have the lifelong ban.
Death penalty? You're going full death penalty, G?
Death penalty. I mean, listen, I don't know.
If they didn't give Penn State the death penalty if that didn't get a death penalty, nothing is.
They got the death penalty though.
Who?
Penn State.
No, they didn't. The death penalty is they shut the program down. SMU got the death penalty. They took scholarships away and a postseason bowl ban for raping little kids in the shower.
Bro, it's a family show.
What did I say? Was that accurate?
No, everything was accurate. We just don't even get the graphic details. Come on, man.
I'm just getting the point across. If that doesn't get the death penalty, stealing signs isn't getting the death penalty. That's all I'm saying.
It's not just stealing signs. It's impersonating people on the sideline. He's dressing up like wearing fake mustaches, hiding his face. I mean, I felt like, I'm sorry that you have to deal with this, Bill. I like you. But, you got to kind of just, I would disown the franchise.
Just find another team? Maybe you could be a fan of Delaware. They got the winged helmet, too. You don't got to change up any of your gear.
I'll go the gene route. I'll just pick a team in every region and every conference, and then I'll ride with whichever one.
It's
going to go that year.
Football teams. Two. Yes. I have Penn State.
Who was the third one he picked up this year?
No, follow. Listen to me. I have two football teams. I have Penn State and whoever I pick to win the national championship. That's it. I'm not a Georgia fan anymore. Right now, I'm a Texas fan. It's Penn State and Texas. And I'm riding with them. I'm riding with my man Quinn Ewers this year. Even though he's not playing, he's hurt. But that's who I picked. I'm not a Georgia fan. I'm not. I say it again. I was a Georgia fan for the years I picked them to win the Natty. I am no longer a Georgia fan.
He's throwing. He might play this week.
Good. I hope so. That's what I'm picking. But I'm a Penn State fan. Penn State fan.
So you guys are at war this week then? You and Bill?
That's why I started the show this way.
Okay. Hey, I like it.
I don't want to do this to Bill. I like Bill. Bill's a great guy.
Not doing anything.
Herb gentleman. But he's a fan of the cheatingest program in college football history.
We'll see.
What do you mean we'll see? It's proven.
What's proven?
I was on the sidelines of Central Michigan.
That's not even him. Number one, that's not even him. Show me. That's all everybody keeps saying. I'd say the same thing. Show me a proof that's not that's like this same conversation I got with Cottrell the other day. The NCAA has already come out and said that Harbaugh didn't know about it. There's no proof linking him to it.
Doesn't matter
if he knows about it. He's responsible for the program.
You guys had our signs last year because Purdue and Rutgers had your little thing going. So I mean, again, everybody's doing it, bro. Like it's all going to.
Sign stealing isn't illegal. The way
Correct.
that they did
Videotaping
it,
sidelines, pointing the finger at the other
to
person.
other teams to do it for you and then hand it off to you for the Big Ten championship game, like Purdue did. It did. It's funny. Ryan Walters changed his tune today when he got asked about it after it got leaked. Like, oh, you had all of Michigan signs last year for the Big Ten championship game. No comment. Didn't want to talk about it. Called them cheaters all last week. Got his ass stomped in, and then when it leaked out that him and his crew had a little sign cheating thing as well. No comments today. Greg Schiano, no.
He sound like a Patriots fan.
Everybody does.
Well, I swear, the Patriots fans treat this
you
like.
Don't let me talk, bro. You're going off all the BS that's released on Twitter. That's already been proven to be true or not true on either side of it. My point is, Purdue didn't do it themselves. They did exactly what Michigan did. They got the signs from somebody. Yes, they did. They had it. They did.
Purdue didn't videotape any sidelines. That's not what
the other people did, and then handed them off to them for the Big Ten championship game.
That's not what the reports are saying. That's not. No one said. No one's saying that Ohio State or Rutgers videotape sidelines.
Why do you think Jim Harbaugh laughed when they asked him if he changed his signs at the halftime of the Big Ten championship game last year? What was the score of that game at halftime?
I don't remember.
14-13. What did the game finish after they changed their signs? 42-13.
I mean, I'm proud of Michigan for beating a superb team.
Gene, my one rebuttal to that would be, what was Jim Harbaugh's record before this sign stealing gate started?
Listen. I mean, it's funny. It's funny.
I think he was 21-16, somewhere around that mark. They said, he was on the hot seat. If you guys remember, that summer of 2021, Jim Harbaugh's name was on the hot seat. Since it's happened, he's 33-3. Only games that he's lost: Michigan State, the game that happened, Michigan State, and then 2 games that they just so happened to not know, who they were going to be playing and know what signs were coming. So I mean, it's just an interesting coincidence. That's all.
It's an interesting coincidence. The last 2 years you had our signs and you still got throttled. Interesting coincidence.
We'll see what happens this year with no Connor.
We will. We'll see what happens when you guys don't have our signs. You guys probably lose by 30 instead of 20.
I guess we'll find out. But this week we have Penn State versus Michigan in Penn State, and I'm guaranteeing a Penn State victory. It's a stamp it. Penn State is going to win. Michigan is already. Listen, guys, I don't give my picks away early. I don't. Today, I'm giving them away early. Michigan is dealing with this all week. Harbaugh's answering questions all week, and Penn State is going to throttle them this weekend. I don't think the game's close. I think Penn State beats Michigan this week by 2 touchdowns.
Oh, good.
I really believe that. I believe that. I'm saying it now. But we got to start with the NFL. We'll get to college football. Before we get into our midseason awards and previewing games, we got a lot of stuff to talk about. I want to bring up a couple things that I found very interesting. So the Antonio Pierce report came out about Josh McDaniels last week. It came out Sunday. We got to talk about that, right? When
for sure.
The locker room situation that happened where Josh McDaniels had the whole group up there speaking openly, and they were all like, "We hate you. You're terrible." And then Josh is like, "Antonio, we need you to get them back on our side." So Antonio Pierce gets up there, mentions how his Giants team recovered and they beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl, and the whole team is revved up and fired up. And then after the meeting, Josh McDaniels pulled Antonio Pierce aside and goes, "Yo, don't ever mention the Patriots again. Never again."
Whacked.
It's crazy though, right? Isn't it nuts what happened in Las Vegas? And then they come out, play inspired football. Granted, I understand it was a very winnable game for Las Vegas. The Giants stink. I get it.
They've been finding ways to lose those games.
What?
I say with McDaniels, they've been finding ways to lose those games. So
the Raiders look different. And I'll tell you right now, I predicted the Raiders to be under 7.5. I don't think they'll be under 7.5 anymore. I think they'll be an above 500 team with Antonio Pierce. But I got a prediction for you. before we talk about the Raiders situation, I'll predict this. That team will make a run, might not make the playoffs, might make it as a 7 seed, whatever. And then they'll be like, Antonio Pierce is going to interview for the job. And then they're going to hire some white schlub off the sideline of some other team and be like, sorry, Antonio, he interviewed better, like they did the Rich Bisaccio.
I don't think they'll make the same mistake twice. And I think, and the reason I say that is, I would say Antonio Pierce probably wasn't the most logical person to take over that team right away. And I think the way the situation went down and the way the guys spoke, about him, I think it made the decision for Davis to name him, interim coach very easy. I think if they compete the rest of the year and they look better, I don't think anybody but Antonio Pierce will be the head coach of that football team next year.
And I think the other thing too that kind of gives Antonio a little bit more, I guess, help would be the fact that, one, they've already, gone through the situation. They saw how it didn't turn out with the guy that they should have kept. And then, they go out there, make the splash move per se, and, obviously fall flat on their face. And then I think the other part of it too is that, I think his press conference really put everybody on notice, that locker room clearly responded to, he mentioned that he's from the Oakland area and that he's a Raiders fan. So I think it put the locker room on notice, and, they're buying into him. So if they finish the season strong and what he means to that locker room already out there in the media because of that press conference and because of what the players have said, I don't think there's any way that Mark Davis would be able to go out there and hire someone else, especially if they still compete.
I just want to give you two names, Chris Forrester and Frank Smith. They are the two guys, the offensive coordinators for Miami and for San Francisco, and they're offensive coordinators for offensive-minded coaches, and they're going to get jobs in the NFL this offseason because they're in the right place at the right time. Book it. I'm telling you right now, Chris Forrester and Frank Smith will be coaches next year. You don't know who they are, right? 90% of football minds don't know who they are. And
well, if they are, I don't think one of them is going to be in Vegas. That's all I'm saying.
I just hope Vegas does the right thing this time.
I don't know if you guys saw the clip with Devontae Adams yet. He was at a basketball game and the ref came up and said hi to him before the game and was glad to see you guys are playing better or whatever. And he was already he's like it's totally different already. He's the vibes and everything. He's are totally different. So listen, they got to get a quarterback, number one, and then they got to go from there. But I mean, if that guy has the locker room and guys are going to play hard for him, then that's one thing they don't have to worry about in the offseason.
I just look at franchises that make big mistakes all the time. The Raiders, the Bears. There's just franchises that just can't help. The Giants, they can't help but shoot themselves in the foot. They just can't help it, right? They try so hard to screw everything up. The Jaguars for years until they hired Doug Peterson. These franchises love screwing it up. The Chargers, they get Justin Herbert falls into their lap. He's incredible. They have the coach that makes him rookie of the year. No, we're firing you. We need Brandon Staley. He's the guy. And then all of a sudden, they don't win a playoff game with the offensive rookie of the year. I can't look at this and tell you until they prove me wrong. I looked at that situation with Rich Bisaccio and was just man, that man should have got a Medal of Honor, let alone keep the job. He dealt with Gruden. He dealt with Ruggs. He took that team to the playoffs. They were in the red zone versus the AFC champion to tie the game. No. We need Josh McDaniels. I don't have any friggin' faith in Mark Davis whatsoever. None. Zero. I think him and his barber need to go somewhere and let somebody else do the business.
I think the only thing that you can't. I mean, the way the Gruden thing played out, that wasn't a bad hire when it happened. The way the fallout from it, and then the decisions afterwards were obviously letting him go, and then bringing McDaniels is the bad part of that. I mean, I don't think you can say hiring Gruden was a bad hire.
No, I don't think. I'm just saying Rich Bisaccia dealt with the Gruden thing, dealt with the Ruggs thing, and still took that team to the playoffs.
There was an easy way out of that for him too, and I'm surprised he didn't take it. I mean, it would be very easy to give him, a 2-year contract and guarantee it. You weren't going to have to pay him, Bill Belichick money, and then if it became too much for him and it was overwhelmed, then you write a check and you get out of it. But the fact that, like you said, those guys played as well as they did, you can make an argument they should have won the playoff game. And then just fire him and then bring in a guy. I don't know.
I don't know the exact number, Bill, but I think they're paying somewhere around the area $60 million.
90 between the two of them.
For two coaches not to coach their team. Like, what?
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, the Gruden thing is just a disaster. I mean, that's going forward in court. I actually can't wait for that, because I think the NFL is going to take a black eye on that one.
Speaking of another thing, 100%. Speaking of another thing that's happened in the NFL this week, our boy Carson Wentz got signed to the Los Angeles Rams. I'd love to talk about that. I'd love to bring it up. I want to make a statement about Carson Wentz. And you guys can correct me. Tell me I'm wrong. Look, we all watched Carson Wentz's talent in 2017. Right? We all watched it. We even seen it in 2019, right? With no team whatsoever. If you had to pinpoint what Carson Wentz does wrong, what would you say it would be?
The way he thinks.
Okay. Mentally. That's fair.
I'll say that because for the same thing you just said, and the reason why we, like me and you, were kind of like two of the last people to kind of get off the ship. You've physically seen what he can do. Like when he's comfortable and confident, he has all the physical tools in the world to be an elite NFL quarterback. He does. Okay. His stuff is squarely between the ears.
That's fair. I like that. Go ahead.
I mean, I think, yes, the thoughts is definitely where I would go. It's more so for me, though, like him playing hero ball and not within the system. Like, obviously, we saw when he was at his best in Philadelphia, he got away with it because, he was still, crazy athlete, and, he was playing still within that offense. And I think now, obviously, he hasn't been the same athletically since the ACL injury. He can't make those same plays. And when he does try to make those plays, that's when those really bad turnovers happen. So I think if he played actually within a system, the arm talent is there. Just got to clean up the decision-making.
Okay, so I highlighted this comment by Joseph Jeffers. He said mentality and attitude. I'm probably going to say the most damning thing I've ever said about Carson Wentz on this show right now. I said this on Coffee and Sports in the Morning. If you didn't check it out, you can listen to it. I'm going to say it again now. Carson Wentz has made 1, 2, 3 locker rooms hate him. He has not been on a team where the Jets are suffering with Zach Wilson. The Vikings went and traded for Josh Dobbs, and he hasn't been able to sign with the team until right now with Sean McVay and the Rams. One of the things that really kind of like blew up for me was after everything that happened with John Gruden and the racist emails that came out, this man decided to work out with him in Tampa Bay. I thought that was one of the worst business decisions ever. I'm not going to make the show political. I don't care what side of the fence you stand on, and that's fine. But with the league that's 67% African American, he's in your face conservative, which whatever, it's fine. But then to hire John Gruden and work with him on his skill set, now locker rooms don't like him. He got pissy when the Eagles were winning and Sproles got in a fight with them. It's, to me, he's made so many bad decisions that I feel like that needs to get brought up, right? I feel like it needs to get brought up that why would you go out there and work with John? Like, I don't know why you would allow that to be public knowledge. Like, the guy said really stupid things, right? No, am I wrong?
I'm gonna say you're wrong in that this isn't Carson Wentz like sticking up for John Gruden. Like hiring him as a quarterback coach, I think is a little different than aligning yourself with him or what he says. And I'll say in Carson's defense this way: if there's one person that you would say you kind of know exactly where he stands with things, it would be Carson, because he is so conservative and so religious. I don't think the locker room thing is weird with him. I think he has a it's not a good thing, but he has an uncanny ability of splitting a locker room.
Yes.
So I'm not going to say locker rooms hate him. I think there's parts of the locker room that hate him, and there's parts of the locker room that love him. I mean,
would a good comparison be Tim Tebow?
I mean, he's a lot better than Tim Tebow, but
no, talent-wise, I'm talking about just.
I don't. Now listen, because I'll say this: Tebow getting kind of forced out of the NFL was more of nobody really thought he could play. I don't recall anybody ever in the media, teammate wise, being like, "Yo, Tim Tebow was a horrible teammate."
No, but my point being is very God first.
Yes, he's very religious. He's very conservative. He doesn't hide it.
He did the anti-vax thing, which whatever. Yeah. Listen, you're anti-vax, that's fine. But like to have all those things and then to align yourself with someone that said racist comments, it almost gives the impression. I don't. You guys can paint the picture yourself. I'm kind of spoon feeding it for you. Why this guy's not playing in the NFL?
I think it has way more to do with how he played in Washington than anything else.
Okay,
and I'll leave it at that. I think
you see my point.
I don't. I'm not saying I don't see your point. I'm just, but again, like I'm saying, like, listen, like look how revered Kelsey is in this city.
Yeah,
Kelsey was one of the guys that sat on the field with him at the end when we all knew he wasn't playing here anymore. He was one of the last 4 guys off the field. If that guy's going to bat for you in the locker room, he can't be. Obviously, him and Darren Sproles didn't see eye to eye on something. They got in a fight. But my point is, if you have Kelsey and Ertz are 2 of the most beloved Eagles of all time, they're on his side. It can't be that bad. When he got released from the Colts, Leonard was the first guy to go on Twitter and was like, "What the F are we doing?" And thanked him for everything he did. I think Washington was a little bit different, but he has his detractors too, and they're just as valid as anything else. I just think he has a bad habit of certain guys he gets along with and other guys he doesn't. I think the Gruden thing, just for me, I think the Gruden thing's a little bit of a stretch. Gruden is looked at as the number one, if not number one of the top 2 or 3 QB gurus, like, in the football world. I think he's just getting with him to try to, to get this next shot. And the only reason I say that is because I think if you judge anything about Carson Wentz, I don't think character in regards to what he believes in or what you think he stands for is one of those things you would question.
Okay.
That's all.
I definitely think that, I think that is part of it. Obviously, I think play is a bigger part of why he hadn't been signed, but I do think that that's a big part of it as well, especially just knowing, some of the quarterbacks that are out there right now. I mean, it took, right now the Bears are starting their D2 quarterback, undrafted, and granted, the kid has done his thing. Like Tyler, he's been okay. Like, don't give me, to just bash on him, but like, just some of these other guys and some of these other moves that have been made so far this year, you definitely would have imagined that Carson would have been thought of before to fill those vacancies. And so I definitely think that that has something to do with it. Now, the one thing that I kind of, feel like John Gruden's not really like an official NFL outcast quite yet is because the Saints have been bringing him in. He was working with Derek Carr. So like, I do think, there are certain teams that are okay with Gruden and, just working with Gruden. But, you got to find that right fit. And, hopefully this works out for the Rams. Obviously, McVay basically just did the same thing last year, got Baker Mayfield middle of the year. And, he came in and was, had a bit of success. It was a lot of up and downs, but now he's a starter in Tampa Bay and he's taking care of business there. So maybe this is what Carson needs. He was really just waiting on that right opportunity, because you don't want to just go somewhere random and potentially flame out. So maybe this is really it. Maybe it's a combination of all the three.
I want to read this comment. Ed the Head, my man, in the comments. Carson Wentz is a bitter man after getting hurt and watching another guy beat the GOAT, Tom Brady, and bring a Super Bowl back to Philly. He became insecure and overwhelmed with the pressure to repeat the season he had in 2017. I agree with you, Ed. I just think the other stuff adds to it too. Before we kind of move into midseason awards, I do want to talk about last week, just a small recap. I don't want to go too crazy, but I can't not talk about the fact that the Philadelphia Eagles are 8-1, headed into the bye week, and beat the Dallas Cowboys, who, in my personal opinion, beat themselves again. Did it to themselves again. Guys, I said this last week. I hate the game. I think the Philadelphia Eagles it's just a bad matchup versus Dallas. I was wrong about the Seattle game. I said styles make fights. I thought Seattle would be matched up better with Baltimore. 100% wrong there. But I'm right about Dallas. Philadelphia always seems to have problems with them because Philadelphia plays keep away, right? They want to keep the ball away from you. They want to have long drives. They want to run. They want to play against teams that have cover 2 safeties over the top so they can't take the top off. So it'll take 4, 5, 6 yards at a time. And then when eventually they're tired of you taking 4, 5, 6 yards, then they'll get that big X play. Dallas is a super aggressive defense that does not allow you to play keep away, right? It makes you make big plays, big X plays to beat them. They have 2 great edge rushers. They got pressure all day. It was a very good football game. Philadelphia Eagles tried to blow that game at the end. But the one thing I needed to bring up, and it's like kind of like a 2-part thing, and it's like laugh at my pain, right? Cowboys fans, I'm sorry. This is going to hurt. Mike McCarthy has proven throughout his career to be one of the worst clock managers you will ever watch in the history of football. Dak Prescott, throughout his career, has proven whenever the moment gets really big, like he'll play great the whole football game, but that last 30 seconds, it's just too big for him. So I'll give you an example, right? Even the announcers who were very pro Dallas the entire game, which is fine. That happens. They're America's team. I get it. Even after that, they were saying, I don't know why Dallas isn't running. Hurry up. They're not running more frantic. They're making this drive be the last drive of the football game. They're draining the clock. They didn't get the touchdown. Schumacher gets stopped. Fine. They get down 28-23. They scored a touchdown. They don't get the 2-point conversion. Fine. They get the ball back with 50 seconds left on the clock. They move down the field with 2 dumb Eagles penalties and a blown coverage on CeeDee Lamb. 1st and goal from the 6-yard line. This is not talked about at all. At all. Do you know the play call they called with no timeouts at 1st and goal from the 6 with 23 seconds left? Do you know the play call that they called? It was QB draw. And they got bailed out. The fact that their left tackle jumped off sides, the 5-yard penalty, and then the only thing you can't do on 1st and goal from the 11 is take a sack. And what did Dak Prescott do? Josh Sweat beat, I don't know why I had the guy's name all week.
Connor McGovern.
No, right tackle.
Right tackle got smoked
all day.
Second
Steele.
Yeah.
He beat Steele like he stole something. Then they throw a ball that's 5 yards short of the end zone. And it's just like, I could laugh at Dallas for this for days. Dallas looked like the better football team. You watch that game and left that game and then say, Dallas looks like the better football team? You give me a look. You didn't watch that game and feel like Dallas looked like the better football team?
I mean, in the first half, yes, but I mean, at the point that the Eagles went up 28-17, I was like, okay, well, this is the Eagles team that I was expecting to show up. And I get it. Dallas made plays towards the end of that game, and they had ample opportunity to win that game. But I didn't just think that the Eagles stole that game by any means. I think they were in a position to give it away, absolutely. But I thought the Eagles in that second half, especially, were in control of that football game. I thought they were moving the ball, pretty easy, and I thought that the defense held strong when they needed to. And I know that the Eagles did have some fortune bounce their way in terms of the way the ball bounced on the fumbles and them recovering all of them. But I mean, like, that kind of thing happens, and then you still win the football game. And I know they all went their way in that situation, but like, I didn't just go out and say, "Oh, Dallas played better this entire game." And I think the other thing too is that Mike McCarthy, give him all the blame in the world. Dak, I do give him some blame. I'm not as critical on him as a lot of other people are in that situation, just because that false start penalty can't happen. Like, you're at the 6-yard line. I can't put that on Dak. You back up. And then the sack, yes, he should have thrown the ball away. Don't get me wrong. But they got after him pretty much instantly. So, I mean, he tries to throw that ball, and let's say, they hit his arm and it's a fumble, and, that's the way the game ends. We're talking about it that way as well. So, like, I can't put that all on Dak. You got to give him at least, 2.5 seconds. Like, it was less than 2.5 seconds before they got to him and sacked him. So, I do think he should have tried to throw the ball away, but, I think that kind of thing happens very fast. And then the last play of the game, I mean, you got to know, hey, this is the last play of the game. Got to throw the ball in the end zone. That I will get on him for. You throw the ball in the end zone there, but I'm not mad at Dak. Like, Dak's not the reason why they lost that game. And I'm not even saying that you're insinuating that.
Whose play call? You said the false start hurt them. I don't think the false start hurt them at all. I think if they ran that play that they were attempting to run, did you watch how that play started? They were running QB draw with no timeouts.
I get it, but you figure they had enough time to get that sack and that all that. You got to figure QB draw there. Yes, it's a dumb play call. Don't get me wrong, but all your guys are right there at the line. Like, at worst, that takes 8 to 10 seconds off the clock because you can get right back up and spike it. So I think it's an awful play call in that situation, but you're still right there on the goal line. Your whole playbook is still open. If you can get up to the line and spike it, you still probably can get off 3 plays. And, from that, I mean, I'd say worst case scenario, you lose a yard or 2. So then you're at the, the 7 or 8. So I do think that matters.
Okay. I just give him my opinion. Let's get in the midseason awards. You want to do that before previews, right?
Yeah.
All right, let's get into midseason awards. We'll start with we broke down middle of the season. We have all our awards. Who should be the MVP, Coach of the Year, Offensive Player of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Year. Offensive Rookie of the Year, pretty easy, guys. I'm going to sweep. He's already going to have minus 500 on the betting lines. After his 5 touchdown performance, CJ Stroud looks like him. And all those Ohio State quarterbacks can't play comments, y'all can put them in the trunk. Like, there's no way this kid can play football. It's CJ Stroud, and I don't think it's even close. Anybody you want to add? Anybody else you want to highlight in this scenario?
No, it's him, and the gap's probably going to get worse the longer the season goes if he keeps playing the way he is. Bijan's not getting the ball in Atlanta. Gibbs has been a little bit banged up, and they're not really using him a ton in Detroit. It's going to be CJ Stroud by a wide margin.
You just brought up the funniest thing to me. We were talking about this Sunday when we were watching the football games. Do you know the Atlanta Falcons have?
I knew that's where you're going to go.
Spent the 8th overall pick on a running back, the 8th overall pick on a wide receiver, and the 4th overall pick on a tight end, and they used none of them. Their leading rusher is Tyler Algier. Their leading tight end is Jonnu Smith. Like, what is going on in Atlanta?
Arthur Smith is trying to coach himself out of that job.
Yeah, I mean, the Arthur Smith part of it is interesting. And then, I mean, obviously the drafting thing. I mean, we've talked about it, at length on this show. They need to get a quarterback. I mean, you could draft Bijan, you could draft all these guys in the world. If Desmond Ritter's your answer under center, you're not going to be good. And they've won a couple games this year with smoke and mirrors. He's not even starting now. They have to. There's no way you could have a Drake London and Kyle Pitts and Bijan and all these guys and tell me that if you don't get a competent quarterback, that's a very explosive offensive team. If you get the right guy under there that can can distribute the football, that team will score a lot of points.
I think it's more on Arthur Smith though. They called a play call, a tight end pass, where their backup tight end threw the ball to their third string tight end, while their number 4 pick was blocking.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's this goes back to the whole coaching conversation too. I think there's certain coaches that need to be brought in, in certain situations. I don't think Arthur Smith was the right guy to come in to that team with where they were, especially at the quarterback position, and it's showing. I mean, it's like you said, you have a guy last year. I mean, Algier is it's kind of hard to harp on him because they drafted him last year in a later round, and he turned out to be a steal. He had like 1,100 yards rushing last year.
Then don't draft Bijan 8.
I don't disagree. My point by saying that is though, like they're using a guy last year that did very well for them, and they draft it. But I agree with you. Then don't if you feel comfortable with him and he's competent, then don't take Bijan 8 this year. Draft a quarterback.
I'm not reinventing the wheel here. If we're in the red zone and I need 5, 6, 7 yards and I'm going to run the football, I don't care how good Algier did last year. I'm bringing in the number 8 overall pick, and I'm going to say, hey, worst case scenario, make a guy miss and go out there and make a play. Like the fact that Bijan's not even touching the ball in the fourth quarter is just absolutely insane. And to an extent, out there in Detroit, it's different because they were winning. But I mean, seeing the way that Jahmyr Gibbs has played the last 2 weeks, I get it. David Montgomery's been getting touchdowns, things like that. But it's the same thing that Jamal Williams was doing last year. Like, it's insane that these guys were drafted in the first round. They're not getting the touches. So Jahmyr's had a chance to show, what he could do these last 2 games. If the Falcons go out there and they give Bijan 20 carries a game, then Bijan's going to be on this list. He probably won't beat out Stroud just because, the way Stroud's playing right now. But Bijan's going to be a finalist for the Rookie of the Year because whenever he has the ball in his hands, he has the chance to go make a huge play.
Completely agree with you. Let's move on to Defensive Rookie of the Year. Look at this. Clean sweep again. Guys, I hope we don't have all clean sweeps. I don't know what your picks are. All right, good. Jalen Carter has been an absolute man amongst boys. Like, we're not talking about the best rookie defender. We're talking about one of the best defensive linemen in football. You can't argue with this one. Jalen Carter is your Defensive Rookie of the Year, and I don't really think there's a close second. I love what Will Anderson's doing but he's been hurt. This week he's hurt. I love what Will Anderson's doing in Houston. I'm a huge Will Anderson guy. I love what Devin Witherspoon's doing in Seattle. Jalen Carter's just head and shoulders. Go ahead, Charlie. Sorry.
I got homer heat for this one when we did this at the beginning of the season. And now it's a clean sweep. I would just like the record to show.
The record has shown.
I think the other thing, too, one thing that I'll just add here, the only thing that I think could potentially hurt Jalen Carter moving forward is his lack of snaps. And, I think right now he's making the most of all the snaps that he's getting. But, if that production starts to fall off and we still see his snap number be where they are, I think then it could start to get interesting. But right now, it's not even close. When he's on the field, he's absolutely insane. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, same. Okay, just double checking. Let's move on. What's next on the agenda? Oh, we got a mix. Maybe I'm the homer. I'll explain mine. Cantrell, explain Mike Tomlin to us, because I think that I could argue Mike Tomlin's doing a bad job.
Yeah, you could. I mean, I think for me, just knowing how awful their offense has been so far this year, you could definitely potentially, look at Mike Tomlin and point the finger and say, hey, maybe you just want to get rid of, your OC and Matt Canada and ultimately figure out the problem. But they haven't outgained their opponent one time at all this entire season, and they're 5-3. And so to me, that's a head coach that is finding ways to win football games. He's thinking outside the box. The offense isn't moving the football. obviously, they're relying heavily on that defense, and that's Mike Tomlin's bread and butter. And so I think he has those guys playing, that Steeler way and grit. We use that term all the time. That Steelers defense is very gritty, very stingy, and I credit a lot of that to Mike Tomlin. So them being 5-3 right now, and their offense is looking as awful. They're on historically bad, offensive pace right now, and they're still 5-3. I'm looking at Mike Tomlin as the coach of the year.
Dan Campbell would be on my short list if he didn't get blown out by 30 by Baltimore, but he's definitely up there. I just want to bring that up.
He's definitely up there. He's in the top 3 for me.
Look at you with D'Amico Ryans.
I picked Sirianni to be in the year, and this is going to go down exactly how it went down last year. That's why I switched. They're going to win that division, probably going away. Everybody looks at the roster and says, blah, 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 blah. And then nobody's going to vote for him just like they did last year. D'Amico Ryans took a team that was picked to finish dead last in that division by everyone. Everyone.
Not me.
Not you, but I'm talking about like nationally. Everyone. Starting a rookie QB. And has them a game out of the wild card spot. Only 2 games out of the division lead. I think they are overachieving beyond belief. This isn't a surprise to anybody on this show because we're all big, D'Amico Ryans guys, and we all agreed across the board that we thought he was going to be successful. So it is, they're kind of the guys. I'll tell you this: last 4 or 5 weeks of the year, nobody's going to want to play Houston. That is going to be a team that, somebody's going to need a win. And, at the beginning of the year, they looked at their schedule and like, all right, well, that's a layup. Like, we'll get a win going in there, to help us get into the playoffs. Not going to be the case. He has them playing tough. Gene already mentioned a couple minutes ago that, he hasn't even had Will Anderson all year. He's still playing great.
I think he's played. I just think he's been playing with a nagging hamstring.
Yeah. It is, And again, CJ Stroud's development is through the roof. And he's got those guys playing tough. They're playing hard. The defense is very, very tough to consistently move the ball against. That's why I switched for me.
Well, this is all our number ones, Ed. We're not, he might be on the list. He might be my second. He might be my third. But my number one is Nick Sirianni. And I'll tell you why he's number one, right? Guy lost his offensive coordinator, who's the head coach now in Indianapolis. Lost his defensive coordinator, who's the head coach in Arizona. He lost a ton of defensive depth. His quarterback has been hurt all season. I think that Nick Sirianni has found ways to win football games regardless of how bad certain things are going. Yeah, it's not glitz and glamour like it was last year. They're finding ways to win football games they shouldn't at sometimes. I think they've been outplayed in games, and he's finding ways to win football games. I think Nick Sirianni has done a masterful job of being the most criticized 8-1 team you'll ever see in your life. The Eagles are constantly criticized. They don't look right. They're turning the football over. Their turnover differential is awful. Yet they're still winning football games. So that's why Nick Sirianni is my coach of the year. What's next? Okay, offensive player of the year. I was so I'll go first in this one. We'll round robin it back to Cottrell. I was really close to sending Tyreek Hill. And then I remembered how much of a piece of shit he is. Listen, Christian McCaffrey scored a touchdown in every football game. He's been incredible, and it's close enough to where I can go with Christian McCaffrey over Tyreek Hill and not have to give any type of voting or any type of award to Tyreek Hill. So I'll go CMC. I think you can kind of split these two with a fine-tooth comb. But if I'm being honest with you, Christian McCaffrey's the better human being, and that's why I went with him.
I picked C-Mac just, not that I'm a fan of who he is off the field. it didn't factor into my voting. But listen, I've done the same thing Gene has, so I'm not going to hate it. I just again, the consistency that C-Max played with this year. He scored in every single game. He is what makes that team go. He's just putting up video game numbers. And I know Tyreek Hill has had a couple of those games as well, but C-Mac's been more consistent. So for me right now, I'm rewarding the consistency of such an elite level of play of where he's been. So that's why I picked him.
To make the argument for Cottrell, I think Tyreek Hill affects the game more than CMC because it changes where the safeties play. It opens the whole field up. It makes Waddle better. It makes A-Chain better. It makes Mostert better. It makes Tua better. So I get it.
Yeah, so the big thing for me right now is just the pace that he's on right now. He's on pace for 2,000 yards this season. He has 8 touchdowns. And not only that, what he's doing is really changing the landscape of the NFL right now, going in motion and essentially simulating that Canadian Football League kind of, false start essentially is really starting to shift gears and more teams are starting to adopt that. So I know this isn't, that kind of award, but just knowing the pressure that he's putting on these teams week in and week out and knowing that the pace that he's currently on, I mean, this is a guy who, has 1,000 yards already and 70 catches and 8 touchdowns. So, he continues that. We're going to be looking at probably like 130 receptions, maybe 15, 16 touchdowns, and then potentially 2,000 yards. So that's ultimately the reason why I have Tyreek Hill, just a slight step ahead of Christian McCaffrey.
All right, what's next? Defensive Player of the Year. I don't think it's between Myles Garrett and TJ Watt. I would love to hear Shalley's explanation here. I think it's between Myles Garrett. If I'm being honest, I think it's between Myles Garrett and Micah Parsons. I think those are the two leaders in the clubhouse. I don't think TJ Watt's, I don't know, maybe he's top 5, but let me hear what the explanation is for why TJ Watt would be your Defensive Player of the Year.
I mean, he's been explosive and he's on the worst team out of the 3 of them by far. He's helping carry that team. We talked about Mike Tomlin a couple minutes ago. I think he's a bigger impact, just as big as impact as Myles and Micah does. He's tied for the most sacks between the 3 of them. And then on top of that, he's got interceptions and forced fumble and fumble recoveries. He's got the stats to back it up as well. I would say it's between these two guys. I think Micah's great, but I think both these guys are outperforming Micah this year. So I know the pressure to give Micah one because people feel like he got robbed last year, but these two guys right here are having absolute elite killer years so far. I think Micah is third easily between either one of these guys. I almost went with Myles, and I looked at all the stats and everything else, and it just tipped me to TJ a little bit. I'm not mad about Myles, but if TJ doesn't win it, it should be Myles Garrett. I don't think Micah has had a better year than either one of these two guys so far.
Cottrell?
Yeah, I'm actually gonna agree with Bill. I just think Myles Garrett is impact-wise having, more of an impact on the game. That's not to take away from TJ. What he's doing is absolutely incredible. These are my top 2 guys. And I think I would personally throw in there. I know this team hasn't had as much success, but I throw in probably Max Crosby ahead of Micah Parsons at this point. But Micah's incredible. He affects the game crazy ways as well. So I'm not mad about him being in the discussion. But with Myles Garrett specifically, I mean, the way that he's affected games so far, and of course, me being a Browns fan, I've had a chance to see it firsthand. Blocking field goals and getting, strip sacks in the end zone, creating points there, getting, sacks that ultimately turned into to safeties. I just think Myles Garrett is single-handedly finding ways to, ultimately help this Browns team win football games. And it's not just, giving the ball back to the offense. It's him taking points off the board for the other team and also putting up points for the Browns so far this season as well.
I could echo everything that you just said for Myles Garrett. For the sake of time, I agree. I think Myles Garrett's Defensive Player of the Year. I think what he did in that Colts game alone was incredible. What he did in that Steelers game was amazing. So Myles Garrett's my guy. and then NFL MVP. 3 different answers. Control, you want to start us with your Lamar love?
Yeah, absolutely. So I got Lamar Jackson here. And he's on a team right now that is second right now in terms of the AFC standings, week in, week out. He's putting up numbers in terms of passing. The rushing numbers are going to be there as well. He's got about 2,000 yards passing, close to, I think, a little over 400 yards rushing at this point. So his total yards are there. And the way that his team has been having success so far this season, I just think you put all those things together, you got Lamar Jackson leading the MVP race right now.
Shally?
I was between Patrick and Jalen Hurts, and I went with Patrick just because I think the way the voters vote, and on top of everything else, I think he's doing the most with the least amount. I think Jalen's having another incredible year, and I think it's going to kind of get into the whole, like, if Jalen Hurts didn't play when Patrick Mahomes did, he'd probably win 3 or 4 MVPs in his career. But the numbers he's putting up, he's got Kansas City at the top of the standings once again. Jalen has so much talent around him, and I'm not slighting that at all. Again, he was my second place vote, but I have to give it to the guy who is number one and doing it with less around him. He just continues to carry that team and make plays when he has to. He's Travis Kelce, and then we've even joked about it on the show. I mean, his wide receiver room is trash. So it is. He just continues to perform. It's as simple as that. He plays an elite level all the time, makes plays every game that helps that team win, puts them in position to win. It's hard to not at least recognize the greatness in it all. But not mad about the Jalen Hurts pick at all either. I mean, I would prefer he wins.
So my whole thing with the Jalen Hurts pick is I actually think that he gets kind of slighted because they all look at passing stats when they look at quarterbacks. And I think that Jalen Hurts, his rushing touchdowns are up there, passing touchdowns. He's going to have more touchdowns. He's going to have almost 5,000 yards passing. He's on pace for about 4,500 yards passing right now, which would be more than what he had last year. And last year he should have won the MVP. He missed the last 2 games. That's why Patrick Mahomes won it. I think if he doesn't miss those last 2 games, Jalen Hurts wins the MVP last year. I understand why he didn't, but he's going to statistically, outside of turning the ball over, which he's really got to turn down, he's statistically going to have a better season, higher completion percentage, more passing yards, more passing touchdowns, more total touchdowns than he had last year. Jalen Hurts on the best team in football with the best record in football. I'm going Jalen Hurts here. That's the last one, right?
Yep.
Okay. So we're going to preview a few games. We're going to get an NFL pick'em. We got NCAA. We got NCAA basketball. We got to kind of move, right? So previewing games this week, there's 3. And there's a main event again. And it's pretty clear what the main event is. But let's talk about a couple, little appetizers. We'll start with Jacksonville hosting the San Francisco 49ers. 5-3 49ers, 6-2 Jags. Who do you like in this one, Cottrell? Why? And where are we going from there?
So I like San Francisco in this game, and I actually like them to roll in it. I think that 49ers team, especially coming off of a bye, we saw their struggles before that bye. I think this is their one game where, in that locker room, they're going to be like, hey, we need to show everybody that we're back on track and that we are the team to be feared over there in the NFC, especially this week with the Eagles being on a bye. I think this is their opportunity to, show that they're going to be one of the 2 teams to come out of the NFC. They had an extra week to get Chase Young, acquainted with that defense and scheme and things like that. And I think they're going to get after Trevor Lawrence and really make him uncomfortable. So I got the 49ers winning this one, and I think they win rather comfy. I think easily 2-possession win for the 49ers.
I don't think it's 2 possession. I do think they win, but I think they cover. I do think, coming all the way across the country to Jacksonville is a little bit easier when you're coming off a bye. It's a little bit, of a less strenuous week for them in regards to practice and everything else. I think I think the bye came at the perfect time for San Fran. Hit the regroup button, get everybody back on the same page. I think it's going to be a very good football game, though. I mean, this is not obviously Jacksonville 4 years ago where we expect San Fran to come in and Jacksonville's going to roll over. They're a very good football team. I expect them to play well at home. I think San Fran is just gonna have too much, down the stretch. So I think San Fran by like 7 or so, but I think it's a very good football game.
I can't give all my picks away. This is one of my pick 'em. I will say this: the Jacksonville Jaguars have bit me the last 2 times I picked against them. I picked against them versus Pittsburgh. I thought Pittsburgh would beat them. I thought they were prime for the picking. And I picked against them on Thursday Night Football when they played out the Saints. Doug Peterson seems to find ways to win football games versus good opponents and good defenses. So we'll find out what my pick is when we get to pick them, but it's a very interesting game to say the least. Next on the agenda, I don't even know why I understand why we're doing it, but the Lions are visiting the Chargers. The Chargers have hit 500. They look pretty good on Monday Night Football defensively, but everyone looks defensively good against the Jets. Who do you like in this one? Lions at Chargers. You know what I like in this one? Points. I like a lot of points. I think that neither team's going to stop each other. I think Justin Herbert and Jared Goff are going to go up and down in the field. And if I got to be honest with you, I think the game will be on the line.
Here it comes.
And I think the Lions will win the football game. Aiden Hutchinson will come around and get a sack, or it'll look very similar to the Miami Dolphins game week 1, in my opinion. I like the Lions in this one in a close field goal type game.
I think it's a close game as well. I think it's a higher scoring game. I agree with you on that one. I think Detroit's the better football team for obvious reasons. Just something about this for some weird reason. I think the Chargers pull this game out somehow. Not saying it's going to be a Herbert thing or anything like that. I just think somehow, some way, I think they pull off some. They pull off a big W at home against the Lions, and I do agree with you. I think Goff and Herbert both play well. Probably a good fantasy day for everybody involved in this football game. But I'm just gonna take the Chargers at home. I think it's more. It's nothing more honestly than a gut feeling for me. I just think the Chargers find a way to win this football game.
Let me add something to try to sway your opinion. The schedule makers really did the Chargers no favors in this game. Where did the Chargers play this past Monday night?
New York.
New York.
Had to travel back to Los Angeles on a short week to play the Lions. Where did the Lions play this weekend?
They were on a bye.
Oh, so there's 2 weeks preparation versus 6 days. Yeah, I like Dan Campbell and the Lions in this one.
Yeah, that's exactly where I'm going as well. I mentioned it with the 49ers, them coming off a bye. I think it's going to be the exact same thing with the Lions. I think you're going to get a good chance that you get Dave Montgomery back in this game as well. I think the Lions are going to be able to pound the ball and really control that time of possession. I agree with both of you guys. I do think this is going to be a higher scoring game, but I think at a point where the Lions get up maybe a score or so, I think that offense, especially the way that they've been running the ball, they're going to be able to keep the ball away from that Justin Herbert, offense. And I think the Lions ultimately, sit on it. But I think it's higher scoring. I see like 31-23, something like that. I don't think Justin Herbert even gets a chance to potentially go down and tie the game.
All right. Well, the main event of the evening, the Baltimore Ravens, the now favorite to win the AFC, are going to take on the Cleveland Browns. Deshaun Watson is back, coming off a shutout performance, the number 1 defense in football, the Cleveland Browns. Cottrell, I'm going to ask you a question here. Do you have faith in your defense to shut down your MVP?
It's like, who do you love more, Cleveland or Lamar? This is a tough one for Cottrell.
So, I will say this. Beginning of the year, I said this division was going to beat up on each other. Earlier this year, I picked the Ravens to beat the Browns. I don't think the Ravens sweep us this year. I'm going with the Browns, and I think with that defense, obviously the game plan is going to be to contain Lamar Jackson. And I think if we're playing man-to-man coverage, the way that those Ravens receivers have been playing and the way Lamar can't, get them the ball, especially on the deeper plays down the field, I am trusting Myles Garrett and company to keep contained and limit what Lamar can do with his arm. He's going to have those plays where even with the spy, he's going to beat him. I got the Browns winning a tight, a low-scoring game. And that Ravens – you talk about the Browns being number one. That Ravens defense is playing out of their mind as well. And I know that the Browns have better numbers than them, but their defense has been phenomenal this year as well. I think this is a lower-scoring game. And I'm going with my guy, Dustin Hopkins, to walk it off for us and seal a Cleveland Browns win this weekend.
Charlie, go ahead. Give him the reverse kicker.
There's that. So if you are if that game comes down to a field goal kicking contest at the end, you are up against the GOAT. I will say this. I am actually picking this game, so I'm not going to go too crazy into it. I would just say for Cottrell's sake, I hope it doesn't come down to a field goal because Justin Tucker doesn't really even need to be on your side of the field to beat you. So,
we just don't want him to be. It can come down to a field goal. I just don't want his foot to be on the field. That's all.
Yeah, I agree. If it's a tie game and you see him trotting on the field,
I'm turning it off.
It's time to start praying. It's time to start praying.
I'm taking the Cleveland Browns in this football game. I think they're the better football team. I did Ravens. I don't know. Maybe it's the Harbaugh thing, the advanced scouting. They seem to really
Christ almighty.
They seem to really do a good job against NFC teams, and they've destroyed Seattle and Detroit. But their offense has not looked as good when they're playing teams in their division. This is when we were talking about how Lamar was struggling. It seems like the division has a little bit more of a lock. They know to change the cue cards. And I like the Browns in this one.
Oh, man.
I'm not going to stop, shall we? This is
fine.
A week for it.
Keep going.
I'm glad you're feeding that Browns energy. So I love it.
Let's get into pick 'em, gentlemen.
Hey. Look at me.
I hate this. By the way, I lost that Texans game because Fairbairn got hurt. Yeah. I had the Texans minus 2.5. Yeah. They kneeled the ball after scoring the touchdown. They've also had to go for 2 and didn't get it twice. I lost that game because of Fairbairn getting hurt. I'm just going to be clear about that. I should be 15-11-1 also. But I'm in last place. I'll deal with it.
I should be 16-10. Saints kicker just absolutely missed the shanked a 43-yarder. They would have went up 10. Game would have been over. It was nasty, nasty business. So I'm with you. I'm hating kickers this week too, Gene.
What's the order, Cottrell?
So I'm gonna keep it pat. I've had my run right now in NFL, so I don't want to switch it up. I want to go first. I'll let Bill go second. Gene, you can finish us off here. So, keep your run going. Bill was 2-1 last week, so we'll keep everybody same order and hopefully right this ship again.
I like it.
So first game, I'm going right after it. I got the Browns +6. With the Browns, I hardly ever touch them during the NFL season. I feel like it's bad voodoo unless it's the over/under for me, but I really like them in this spot to cover those 6 points, especially with the way they lost earlier this season and with Deshaun Watson being back. I think that helps out what that offense is going to be doing. He shouldn't turn the ball over 3 times like DTR did earlier this year, and I think the defense is going to be up and amped for this game. Second game I like. I'm sticking in the AFC North, but I like the under 38.5 in that Pittsburgh Green Bay game. I think Jordan Love is going to struggle to read what that Pittsburgh Steelers defense is doing. And on the flip side of it, Pittsburgh is showing you they can't score really against anybody. Now, did their offense look better Thursday against that Titans team? Sure, I guess. They run the ball pretty successfully. But I think, that's going to be a pretty ugly game. And I think the under 38.5 is pretty much a lock. I think that's my best play of the week. Then the last game I got, kind of a fun one. Get to kind of pick at Kyler a bit, but I got the Falcons -1.5 at Arizona. It'll be Kyler Murray's first game back. And I think Kyler is going to look rusty. I think he's going to turn the ball over. And with that Falcons team, them switching over to Taylor Heineke, they lost the game this past week that they absolutely had no business losing. But, those things happen. The other thing is Call of Duty releases this weekend. So I don't know if Kyler is going to be looking at the scouting report or what.
Damn.
Call of Duty comes out tomorrow. So I don't know what Kyler to expect off an ACL and, Call of Duty coming out. So I like the Falcons -1.5.
He's probably been playing for weeks. I'm sure he had the beta. Sure, he's been in that room for weeks.
Shally, what do you got?
All right. To go back 2 games I already talked about real quick, so I'm gonna get through them real fast. Get the Gene here. I'm taking San Fran -3 on the road to Jacksonville. Again, I think coming off a bye, good spot for them. I think it's a very good football game. I just think it's too much offense for San Fran against Jacksonville's defense. And I do think San Fran's defense rebounds a little bit. Chase Young will be up to speed. Running him and both off, both ends with the rest of the talent they have on the line. I think it's gonna be a rough day for T-Law. So I'm gonna go San Fran -3 there. I'm going Cleveland +6 at Baltimore. I ultimately think Baltimore wins the game, and it might be the old Justin Tucker walk off. But if he's walking off, it means they only win by 3. I like Cleveland with almost a touchdown spread there. I think as long as Deshaun Watson actually shows up and actually plays somewhat near his level, I think Cleveland stays in this game late. Maybe even has a shot to win it at the end, but I'll take the +6 all day there. Last game, Cottrell touched on this game too, but I'm gonna go Pittsburgh -3 at home. Tough place to play, tough place to go play. I think Kenny Pickett and the guys will make enough plays. Green Bay struggling offensively. Jordan Love is just a lot of growing pains. One series it looks great. Next series comes out, throws the ball right to the defense. A lot of growing up to go on still there. So I like Pittsburgh at home with that defense. TJ Watt and company, I think they force a couple turnovers. Opportunistic. I think it's low scoring. I do agree with Cottrell. 20-13, somewhere in there. But I like Pittsburgh at home -3.
All right, so I'm going to go quick here. I have the Buffalo Bills -7.5 over the Denver Broncos. Buffalo is coming off an emotional loss at Cincinnati. Denver's coming off their biggest win, emotional high. I think it's a get-right game for Buffalo to get themselves right back in the division. I think Buffalo absolutely destroys Denver this week. I think it's one of the biggest blowouts of the week. So give me Buffalo -7.5 over Denver. What I tell you earlier about Antonio Pierce, he's got them Raiders playing great. I'll tell you who's not playing great. There's a locker room revolt in New York. Zach Wilson is not the guy. They're missing 4/5 of their offensive line. Give me the Raiders +1 over the Jets. And in the last game, I already touched on it earlier. I like San Fran -3 over Jacksonville. And I hope that I jinx myself, right? I hope that it's a jinx and Jacksonville wins the football game. But I like San Fran -3 here. Now, before we get into college football, we're going to go a little bit quicker than normal. And that's okay, because before, when we had to rush through college football, we didn't have coast to coast on Saturday morning. If you want the in-depth knowledge on all things college football, you have to tune in to Coast to Coast. We are starting a premium subscription to the show. I'm kidding. But tune in Saturday morning. Why it's free? Because they're going up on OnlyFans also, because people are paying to see the stuff that they're talking about on Coast to Coast Saturday morning. Let's get into college football. Cottrell, why don't you start us off and tell us about the games that we're breaking down?
Okay, so good feet picks.
So I throw up the rankings here just so everybody knows at least, where we're at right now in terms of, what all the numbers look like. And so you have a better idea when we talk about who's playing who. But first game we're going to be looking at Utah. So number 18, Utah playing number 5, Washington.
Which, by the way, is an absolute joke that Washington's still number 5 after beating USC at USC. They were ranked. Washington should be in the top 4. I'll say it again. They have more ranked wins. They have better ranked wins than Georgia, than Michigan. Washington should be in the top 4. That's it. So if they beat Utah again this week and they're not in the top 4 next week, I don't know what they can do. I think Washington destroys Utah. I think they beat them pretty bad. I think Michael Penix Jr. will be too much for that Utah defense. I think it'll be another offensive showcase for Washington. I think Utah's kind of fallen out of it. I like Washington in this one. I think the Huskies get it done. And I think we're going to look forward to a great rematch in the Pac-12 title game when they go up against Oregon later in the year. So give me Washington in this one, and I think it's rather comfy.
I'm picking this game, but I'll say this: I don't think Utah's done. I don't think that's how I think they're done in terms of well, I guess if they beat Washington, they could probably still get in. So it'll be. I think they mathematically can get in. That's a tough, try hard type team. I don't think they're going to go to Washington and roll over. Washington coming off a very emotional win at USC. We need to stop using USC as resume patters. They're 6-3. But it's I think it's going to be a very good football game. I really do. I think Washington's going to get pushed in that game. I'll say that.
I'll put it to you this way: if Oregon beat them 35-6 at Utah, you think they're going to go into Washington and keep that game closer?
I think Oregon's a better football team, and Oregon's a more complete football team.
Fair.
I've talked about this with Oregon and Utah, and that's why I said it was a horrible matchup for Utah, because Oregon has a very dynamic offense and they have a very good defense. Washington has a dynamic offense. Their defense can be had, and you could score points on that defense. And that's how Utah's been, making their way through the year and beating teams that everybody thought they weren't going to beat.
Control, who you like?
Gene, I'm with you here. I got Washington. I like Washington big. I think Michael Penix Jr. and company are going to put up a lot of points in this game. And, obviously, when you play against USC, you have the opportunity to really get your offense flowing because the USC plays no defense over there. But I think going up against this Utah team, I really just think they're going to have the ball a lot. I think Utah is not going to be able to move the ball rather efficiently in this one. I'm not a big Bryson Barnes guy. He's done well in certain games. He's looked okay in other spots, but I just don't think that Utah offense is going to be able to continuously put together drives. And so with that being the case, I think every time they punt the ball away back to Washington, they're going to go down and score. So I got Washington winning pretty big here. I think this is like a 42-21 kind of game.
Well, look at Ed. Washington wins in a nail-biter, 34-33. Utah has a history of playing spoiler late in the season, and Washington has a history of losing big games that out them a big bowl conversation. Okay. I like it. What's next, Cottrell?
So the next game that we got on the docket is Ole Miss playing Georgia.
I like Georgia. I think Georgia's the better football team. I think Jackson Dart and Ole Miss, they just won't get it together as usual. When they ever play big games, they look scared. I said that earlier when they played Alabama. I like Georgia in this football game. I think they'll win the game. I think they'll win it rather comfy. I think both of these games are games that Georgia will look like Georgia, and I think they'll get up for this football game. I like Georgia.
I'm picking this game as well, but that being said, I echo a lot of what Gene just said. I think Georgia is starting to look like Georgia. I think Ole Miss is always Ole Miss, with Lane Kiffin being their coach. They're going into Athens. And my biggest thing is it's a big game. I have a hard time, really believing that Ole Miss has it in them to go into Georgia and win that football game.
I'm rolling with Georgia here as well. You talk about Georgia starting to look like Georgia. I'm not quite. I think last week they did against Mizzou. They did in spurts. Defensively, they definitely, locked in towards the second half. I do still have some question marks on that offense. I think they run the ball rather effectively. So if they can continue to do that, they're going to be, just fine. But in this specific game, I think, Jackson Dart is going to turn the ball over. Ole Miss is going to struggle. And like you said, Gene, this is a team that is notoriously known, especially under Lane Kiffin. Once those big games happen, especially if they're on the road, they're going to tighten up a bit and, really just not know what to do. So I like Georgia to cover that 10.5 spread. It's not one of my picks this week, but I think Georgia covers pretty comfy.
And then the third game.
Got your main event of the evening. Well, it's going to be your main event at noon. So you got number 10, Penn State hosting number 3, Michigan Wolverines.
Love Penn State in this game. Penn State notoriously plays better at home. The only thing that concerns me is James Clifford Franklin. I'll tell you right now, if this game has something to do with making a big play call at the end of the game, Penn State will lose the football game. He's just known for making stupid play calls at the end of the game. I don't think it will be that way. I think Penn State's defense will dominate. I think they'll turn over McCarthy multiple times. I think that I listen, 27-13 Penn State. I think Penn State drops 27 on Michigan. I think they hold Michigan down to 13, 1 touchdown, 2 field goals. Give me Penn State in this one and give me Penn State rather easy. I think we're watching this game with 7 minutes to go saying, wow, Michigan might be out of the playoff picture.
Michigan's a better football team. I've said it all year. This is, if there was one game, other than obviously the Ohio State game that worried me, it would be this. Happy Valley is a crazy place to go play. It's one of the best, if not the best environments. Penn State dropped the ball here, made us a noon kickoff, and didn't choose this as a whiteout game. And I think that's telling for a reason why. I think Penn State will be the best team in the Big Ten next year. It's not going to be this year. It's going to come down to the 2 quarterbacks. The blueprint to frustrate Penn State's already out there. And you already saw how it's going to go with Ohio State. Michigan's defense is very similar. They're going to do the same thing. If Penn State holds Michigan to 13 points, I would be shocked. That defense is just not that good. They're good. That offense is too dynamic, too many weapons. J.J. McCarthy is by far the better quarterback in the game, and you're going to see it. He's going to be the difference. I think they limit probably Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards a little bit, but they have too many wide receivers on the outside, plus Colston Loveland at the tight end position. J.J.'s going to have a big day. Michigan wins by 10.
So this game is interesting because before the year, I was the person that had Penn State in his college football playoff. I said that they would beat Michigan, and I thought that they would ultimately make it into the college football playoff. The way I've seen so far throughout this college football season, and granted, I know Michigan hasn't faced any top level competition yet, but I really feel like Michigan is the better football team in this game. And with that said, I'm going to switch it up from what I said earlier, even though I got the opportunity to still be right. I'm going to pick Michigan in this one. I think that they run the ball successfully here, and I think Drew Aller is just not ready for the moment quite yet. You saw it against that Ohio State game. They really put the weight of the world on his shoulders. They made him throw the ball a ton, and I think Michigan definitely saw that. They do their advanced scouting, so they saw what to do there. I think they're going to implement a lot of the same thing. And Gene, you mentioned it. The one thing that is going to be the one thing that causes Penn State to potentially lose. I think if it comes down to James Franklin, let's say it's a 4th and 5 call, or, you have your offense out there in a legal formation and he doesn't call timeout. I just think James Franklin is the kind of guy to make one of those bonehead decisions and ultimately cost his team the game. So I'm rolling with Michigan here in a tight one. I think this is going to be a rather lower scoring game. I don't think McCarthy is going to put up crazy numbers because I do think Penn State will limit what they do offensively. But I got Michigan winning a lower scoring game.
I will say one more comment on this before we get into pick 'em. And Shao, you can more than welcome rebuttal it. I don't mind that at all. I just want to see what Michigan does versus a non-Division II football team this year. Because what they've done is essentially had every D2 team scheduled this year beat the crap out of all these crappy teams in the Big Ten or all their non-conference opponents by cheating and having all their signs and all their everything videotaped on the sideline. Penn State will know to change up their signals. The last time a team changed up their signals versus Michigan was TCU, and they dropped 50 on them. I think Penn State wins this football game, and I don't think it's close. Book it.
I will say this, but before you throw your rebuttal in next, I know you're chomping at the bit.
I'm really not. It's just
it'll be very interesting, and I already know how social media is going to play into it. I'm going to be one of those ones. Don't let me fool you. But if Michigan loses the first game after Connor Steins is fired, resigned, whatever, they're gonna never hear the end of it, and that's going to be absolutely hilarious.
I mean, resigned before the Purdue game, but that's neither here nor there. Listen, I'm not making any bones about it that it was, that Penn State's gonna be the best team they've played so far this year. The D2 thing is whatever. I'm not going to comment on that. I mean, Penn State's toughest game other than Ohio State is a 500 West Virginia team. You guys played Delaware, which is literally in Division II. So, we can calm down with that talk. FCS. They're FCS. It's going to be a good football game. I don't think this is I would be just as shocked if Michigan lost or if only scored 13 points as I would if Michigan won by more than 10. I don't think it's going to be that type of game. I think it's going to be a very good football game. And we'll see what happens. I think Michigan's the better football game or football team. I think you're going to see it on Saturday. I think on every facet of the game, I think they're better. I think Penn State's going to struggle to throw the ball. They've had trouble throwing the ball all year. They can't get separation. Michigan has a very good secondary, and they're going to put pressure on Drew up front. I think it's a tough hill for them to climb.
I look forward to next week's show.
Me too.
Let's get into pick'em. Yes. You guys picked up all the super dog points this past week.
That we did, my friend.
That we did.
Army, baby.
Yeah.
I was winning the super dog up until this past week. You guys picked up like 50 super dog points.
Air Force laid a turd. We were making trouble around to pick it up.
All right. Well, what's the order, Control?
So college football, I do enjoy going last here. So Bill, we'll let Bill go first here. Gene, we'll throw you in the middle, and then I'll finish it off here.
Okay.
All right. First two games will be quick because we already talked about them. I'm going Utah plus 9.5 at Washington. Again, I think their defense keeps it in it. I think they can run the ball against Washington, slow the game down. Washington's wide receiver room is still extremely banged up. There's two guys that are going to be game time decision. They should have Giles Jackson back probably, but he's your third or fourth receiver. I think Penix wins. I just don't think Washington blows out Utah at home. So I'll take Utah plus 9.5. Second game, Georgia minus 10.5. I think they win by 20. I really do. I think it's another week where they stayed number 2. A lot of people thought they might jump up to number 1 because they had a good game last week. Another week of Kirby Smart saying everybody thinks Ohio State's better than you guys. They're going to come out on fire at home. Lane Kiffin, James Franklin Jr. doesn't coach well in the big games. I think Georgia lays the wood to Ole Miss at home. Last game, I'm going LSU minus 13.5 at home against Florida, coming off a tough loss at Alabama. At home, Death Valley, night game. Florida's defense has just been giving up big play after big play. Jaden Daniels is going to eat. I like LSU big at home under the lights in Baton Rouge. Superdog, James Madison starting to just smell themselves just a touch. I think they win the game. 24.5 is a lot. I know Connecticut's terrible. They do score some points every game, though, and they've been a lot better this year than they have in the last 2 years. Again, I don't think this game is close by any means. I don't think James Madison's ever in any danger of losing the game. I just think Connecticut picks me up some super dog points. So 24.5 is a lot. So I'll take Connecticut on the road.
I have some weird ones for you guys this week, and that's okay. I'm going to start with this one. Alabama's starting to smell themselves. I don't like the way they smell. Give me Kentucky plus 11 over Alabama. Love Kentucky this week. Second one on the docket. I like Kansas. They proved me wrong last week. I'm rolling with them at this point. Give me Kansas -3 over Texas Tech. I like Kansas in this one. I wasn't going through Pick'em without taking Penn State +5 over Michigan. Yeah, Penn State +5 over Michigan. They win the game outright. You ready for an upset? Are you ready for a crazy upset? Are you ready for one of the biggest upsets of the entire year? Thursday night. Give me Virginia +21 over Louisville. Louisville's going to be looking forward to the Duke game next week, and I'm telling you right now, Virginia might win this football game outright. They did it earlier in the season versus North Carolina. They played Miami strong. Virginia played a very, very hot team last week. They got their butts kicked. They come out strong here, and they give Louisville everything that they want this week. Give me Virginia +21 over Louisville, and I'm going to pick up some super dog points. I guarantee it.
So interesting. We actually don't share any picks at all this week across the board. So that makes this week kind of fun. So I got some weird ones too, Gene. So I'm right there with you. First game, I got Auburn +2.5 at Arkansas. I think Arkansas is a team that's really been Jekyll and Hyde. And that Auburn team, I think, is, plays somewhat good football. I think Peyton Thorne and company, they're going to be able to run the football effectively against that Arkansas team. And I like them to win that game outright. So covering that 2.5, I think, we're going to be pretty good there. Next game, I like the under 42.5 Northwestern at Wisconsin. Wisconsin's still in a position where, their quarterback is Tanner Mordecai, obviously not playing. That running back room is pretty banged up over there as well. And then on the other side for Northwestern, I don't think their offense is going to be able to move the ball consistently against that Wisconsin defense. I think that's one of the ugliest games this weekend. I could see Wisconsin winning that game like 17-6 or something like that. Third game I got Miami, the U, +13.5 at Florida State. I think this is going to be a game where Miami at this point, they really have nothing left to fight for. So I think this is a game that can be their Super Bowl. And, earlier in the year before the Mario Cristobal blunder, this probably was the game they had circled on their calendar. Like, hey, we could potentially make to the ACC championship game and make some noise. And so I still think a lot of those guys are looking forward to this game, Battle of Florida kind of thing. And so I do think they cover that 13.5, with Tyler Van Dyke under center. And then the last game I got, my super dog, I like Stanford +20.5 at Oregon State. I don't think they win that game by any means. The way that their offense has looked the past few weeks, I think they're going to be able to put up points in Corvallis. And, ultimately, just looking to pick up some super dog points there. So I don't think Stanford wins, but I think they can cover that 20.5 point mark.
All righty. We got some NCAA basketball action, a little bit of a UFC preview, and you got to be kidding me. And we're going to do it all in less than 30 minutes. All we're going to do in NCAA basketball is we're going to kind of give our Final Four predictions before the season starts. We're big college basketball guys, January, February, and definitely in March. But we can't walk into the college basketball season, at least get too far, right? A couple days in to college basketball without giving our Final Four predictions. I kind of want to hear a little bit of a breakdown of why you have these teams. And I kind of want to hear who you are expecting to come out of it. But let's go Final Four. Cottrell, you being the college guy, I don't care what order you pick. You could pick the order. Which order are we going with our Final Fours?
I can go first here. I'll let you guys figure out, who wants to go next and from there. But I got some teams that I like. I think first, I don't know how I can go through this and not hit on them. That's Kansas, number one team in the country. I think them getting Hunter Dickinson is going to be absolutely huge for them. It's a guy who's been there before, and he knows exactly, what it takes to compete, not only at a high level, but ultimately he wants to go out there and fight for a ring. I think it's very telling that he left the Michigan program that, it wasn't quite where they were at a few years ago, but he had a lot of talent there and he showed exactly who he could be. So for him to leave there and go over to a Kansas team, I think for him, the only goal in his mind is looking to compete for a championship. So I think he's going to have Kansas pretty much in the thick of it for the entire year. And I think they make it to the Final Four. Next team I like, kind of goes against my thinking normally, but Kentucky. I think they just have way too much talent not to make a deep run this year, come March and April. With that 2023 class that they have, they got four kids that were in the top 20 from last year's class. Obviously, it's going to be spearheaded by you got DJ Wagner, DeJuan Wagner's son, and then you also have the other kid whose name is escaped me at the moment. Their top guy, Justin Edwards. Justin Edwards is the other one. So I think those two are going to lead that Kentucky team. Calipari, this is probably going to be his best freshman class. I would say all the way back to 2012 when they had it with Anthony Davis and those guys. So I like Kentucky to be one of those teams. Arizona is another team that I like this year. They're the prototypical team that make that deep run. They're senior led. And I think Caleb Love transferring there, his senior year and being a part of that team is going to be huge for them. They got great size. Keldon Johnson, I believe is his name, in their front court. He's a good player. I think those two are going to be the dynamic duo that lead Arizona. Last but not least here, I like Duke. I like Duke to make that final run, get back in the Final Four without Coach K. Just the talent that they have alone is incredible. Proctor's back. He was there last year, Tyrese Proctor. Then they also got Filipowski from last year as well. They're 7-footer. So I think those two are going to lead that Duke team back to the Final Four, even without Coach K.
Okay. Shall you want to give yours?
Yeah, I mean, me and Coachella are pretty close, actually. I thought me having Arizona, I thought I'd be alone on that one, but I have Arizona. And I think with what they have coming back, they got Caleb Love, that left North Carolina, went to Michigan, and decided to transfer back out of there and go to Arizona. I think he's huge. He's one of the best point guards in the country. Dynamic and shoot. I think they'll be out in the West. I don't think they'll get a ton of love at the beginning because they're not an East Coast team. They won't get a lot of press, and then at the end of the year, you're going to sit there. They're going to be sitting there like 30 wins, 3 losses. They'll probably win the Pac-10, Pac-12, whatever it is. And I think they have a good shot to get a 1 seed out West. I really do. My other 3 teams are 2 of my other 3 teams. I have Duke. Again, with what they have coming in, that's already there, some of the kids returning. I think that is a team that I think really comes out of the gates hot this year. And I don't think they turn back. I don't think they're going to be the growing pains that were there last year with the first year of the program after Coach K. I think Duke hits the ground running this year. I really do. My other team is Kansas. Cottrell already mentioned Hunter Dickinson transferred out to Michigan, to Kansas. Bill Self has a dominant center on a team that already has a ton of experience from making deep runs the last 2 years. I think Kansas is probably your number 1 overall seed at the end of the season going into the tournament. They're going to be really, really, really good. And this is a team that I was high on. I'm going to stick with it because I wrote them down before the other night happened. But I'm going to go with Michigan State. I'm going to go with Izzo. That team, I know they lost at home to James Madison. Honest to God, like one of the biggest upsets ever in college basketball. I didn't get to watch too much of it because I was at the Villanova game. But when I got home and saw the highlights and actually saw the stats, I don't think they could have a worse shooting performance, and they still only lost by 3 in overtime. They were historically bad shooting stats. So I don't think that's going to happen too many times over the course of the year. So I think Michigan State, with what they brought back from last year and they added, I think Michigan State has a decent shot to get back to the Final Four this year. So those are my 4.
Well, I don't have a lot of the big teams. I don't. And if I'm being completely honest with you, I'm a little bit too educated on college basketball to have them. Too educated. Let's start with this, right? Best team in the country is Kansas. I have Kansas in my Final Four. That's the consensus number one. I think they're the best team in college basketball. Hunter Dickinson transfer in there. It's almost silly. I think they're one of the best teams I've ever seen equipped going into an NCAA season. Period. Let's throw the rest out. All the top seeds. My number 2 this year is Tennessee. I love what Rick Barnes does with that program. I think Tennessee makes another deep SEC run. I think they'll be battle tested going into the tournament. I think Rick Barnes gets them over the hump, gets them to the Final Four this year, and they might be playing Kansas in the finals. My third team, give me the Marquette Golden Eagles. I like Marquette this year. Tyler Kolek. Remember the name. The guy is dominant. He's one of their best players. He's going to be a finalist for the Naismith Award. Don't just give it to Zach Edey. I'm not putting friggin' Purdue on this list because the guy's tall and doesn't know how to walk. No. Give me Marquette. And then for my fourth team, you guys want spoilers? You want sleepers? You want Cinderella? I'm going to let Cinderella just run it back. Starting the season at number 10, give me Florida Atlantic. Give me the Owls, baby. I like the Owls, and I think the Owls make it back. Well-coached basketball program, almost all returning starters, Florida Atlantic University. That's my Final Four, gentlemen.
I think the one team outside of Kansas that I'm probably most confident in is Arizona. I think they just got all the tools, all the seniors. You got great guard play. Outside of that, I think it's pretty much wide open. I love the FAU pick. Michigan State was another team that I had been high on beforehand as well. I do think they bounce back. I don't think this is going to be an indicative of what their season looks like. The one concern that I got with Michigan is I saw it early on last year and how confident I was in North Carolina, and they just never seem to turn it around. I just hope that that's not the case with this Michigan State team. I don't think it will be, but that's just my one concern there. And then just to kind of answer Kyle's question, one team, not necessarily a sleeper because they are a big program, but right now they're in the back half of the top 25. I like USC to potentially be one of those teams to ultimately play spoiler. They got Boogie Ellis, who had a great game the other night. I think him being there, being that senior guard, he's going to obviously lead the charge there. Isaiah Collier is he was the number one prospect from that 2023 class. Obviously, that's going to give them a lot of leverage there. And then at some point this year, they are going to get Bronny back, and I'm sure he's going to probably be an impact player for them off the bench as well. So I think USC is a team that could potentially be, one of those teams to look out for down the line.
I think a team to look out for, and they're on the back half of the top 25, is UNC. They had such a terrible fall off last year, but they do have, and the one thing you got to look at with UNC is whenever you have RJ Davis and Armando Bacot on the basketball court, they can be good. So I think UNC bounces back this year after a very disappointing last year. And I think UNC makes a deep run also.
I'll give you two. I mean, I think one, this is going to be a super sleeper team. I think St. Mary's is going to be a team to watch at the end of the year. I actually think they win that. I think they win that conference this year. I don't think it's going to be Gonzaga. I think what St. Mary's has coming back, I think they're going to get 10. I think they're going to be a top 2 or 3 seed in the tournament. They're going to be very, very good. And they always play a couple good teams at the beginning of the year. They get battle tested. You'll see them in a couple weeks. I believe they play like Michigan State or Kentucky. They play one of the big guys right away. So you'll see that. And the second team I'm going to tell you is a team that's, ranked, but not getting a lot of press or whatever. And I did get to watch them in person the other night. Villanova is going to be sneaky good in the Big East.
Justin Moore.
Yep. You got Moore, you got Ed Dixon back. And I will tell you this, the young kids they brought in this year can play. They are quick.
TJ Bamba.
Very good.
TJ Bamba is, I think, the next good Villanova basketball player.
They are very good. They are very quick, and they can all play defense. They played man the entire game. They didn't go in a zone to rest. When they were up 30, they were playing man. They were pressing. I think that team has a little bit to prove this year. I really do. watch out for Villanova. I think the Big East is going to be great as it always is. With Marquette, we already mentioned Creighton, all those teams. And I think St. John's will be better with Rick Pitino. I think they take a jump this year just out of coaching alone. Villanova's going to be very good. So, me and Gene kind of, we don't try to get too homerish with them, but I'm telling you, they're a good basketball team. If they can stay healthy, they're going to be very good.
I think that Villanova did a great job going out and getting TJ Bomba out in the transfer portal from Washington State. I think he's the senior leadership you need with Justin Moore. I think they're going to be very well equipped to play great defense, and their guard play defense is going to be incredible. That's the thing you got to look at in the tournament. They're going to be able to hound people up and down the court. By the time you get to the end of the second half, and I didn't want to pick Villanova because that's kind of homerish, but the time you get to the end of the second half, you're going to have teams gassed on their second or third guard because those guards are going to stick you up and down the court. That the conditioning is incredible, and they're all elite defenders on the collegiate level. All right, let's get into some UFC action before we get into You Got to Be Kidding Me. A very, very, very weak card. Me and Control arguing this, and that's okay. I love Control. Me and Control have differences of opinions. So I'll watch it because it's UFC, but it's not a good card. Control, since you love the card so much, get me excited. Get me into it.
So, I think you have 4 legit finishers as your co-main and main event. And, I understand it's not going to be your flash names. And I'm not even, I don't want you guys to take it that this is me calling you casuals or anything like that, because I know you're way more than that. You guys are into the sport. But if you are one of the casuals, you probably don't recognize any of these guys. You may recognize Pereira because he beat Izzy, and he's the one that knocked him out. And he took the belt from him. But outside of that, you probably don't know most of these guys. And that's okay, because if you actually watch, these are going to be two phenomenal fights. And so I really feel like, you can talk about the first 2 fights on the card not being great. You even talk about, Mackenzie Dern and Jessica Andrade not being a great fight. I get it. I'm a Mackenzie Dern fan, so I want to see her fight as well. But I think these two co-main and main events, I think these are going to be worth the price of admission.
I think Mackenzie Dern absolutely dominates Jessica Andrade.
Same.
I've never been an Andrade fan. I do like Mackenzie Dern. For whatever reason, I've got the hot hand picking women's MMA if you're ever looking for a pick. But I think Mackenzie Dern by decision, which plays out at like plus 115, is the play in this one.
Agreed.
But let's talk about the co-main event in the main. Sergey Pavlovich is going up against Thomas Aspinall. Aspinall made his way back after a horrific injury versus Curtis Blades. He lost. He won his next fight. He really didn't lose the Curtis Blades fight. That's not really fair. I went back and watched that fight, and it's just at the end of the first round, tore his ACL. So here's where we're at, right? Pavlovich is 18-1. He's dominant. This is an absolute pick'em fight. Who do you like in this one, Cottrell? Are you going to go Aspinall? Aspinall's pretty exciting. I'm probably on the other side. I still think Pavlovich knocks him out, but I would love to hear your opinion on it.
So I'm going with Tom Aspinall in this one, but I agree with, I don't know what the odds are at. You said this is a pick'em, so I wouldn't be surprised at all if this fight went either way. But I'm going Tom Aspinall in this one just because I like his versatility a little bit more. Obviously, you know what you're getting with Sergey. He's the kind of guy arguably the strongest guy in that division. And so he definitely has, one hitter quarter kind of power. And, you've seen that in every one of his fights so far. He's put everybody out in that first round. So I think the key for Tom is going to be escaping that first round and really just seeing, do those punches feel the same come rounds 2, 3, 4, and 5. So I think Tom is going to go in there with a pretty relaxed game plan at first. And the other thing with Tom Aspinall is that he has the versatility where if he needs to drag it down to the muddy waters, he absolutely can do that. He has submissions under his belt as well. So I think if he does get caught by Sergey, I think he's going to try and take him down and, recover, make it, survive to the next round. And then we're going to really see what these guys are about. But neither one of them have gone deep in the fight. So I would love to see how this one plays out.
Well, Sergey's had a 5-rounder before, won a decision for the belt over in globals. His one loss was to a roided up, juiced out Alistar Overeem.
Yeah.
So I like Sergey in this one. I really do. I think he knocks out Aspinall in the first round and continues his dominance. I think he's on an absolute roll. He is steamrolling people at this point. He knocked out Derek Lewis. He knocked out Tai Tuivasa. He knocked out Curtis Blades. And I just think this is another one in the track. Shai, who you like in this one?
I'm going to go with Cottrell in this one. I'm going to go with Aspinall. And the reason is something that Cottrell touched on. I like his versatility. I think he's the more well-rounded fighter. I think if he can stay away from the big shot to put him down, I think he has more ways to win the fight. I think Pavlovich is a little easier to prepare for. He's going to come forward and you know exactly what he's going to do. If you can stay disciplined and stay away from that, I think there's ways he could pick him apart and score points and win the fight. So I'm going to go with Aspinall. I won't be surprised if his head gets knocked off either, but I will go. I'm going to go with Aspinall. I'll say like 4th round stoppage.
Okay. I don't think there's any chance this gets to the 4th round. If you have 4th round stoppage, I think that's playing out like an insane amount. I love that pick, Shally. I absolutely love it. Let's get into the main event of the evening, which I think might be one of the easiest fights to pick in the history of MMA. I will go 3rd on this one because I want to hear. I don't want to influence opinions here. This is a super easy fight to pick. I'm talking about.
We know where you're going.
Do you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, we'll see.
Yeah, I'm going with Yuri here. I think Yuri is he's wild. He's wild for sure. He's that wild card. But I think you saw that Alex Pereira is human, and I think obviously Izzy caught him with a great shot. But I think that shows that he's human, and I think Alex is going to go in there. He's going to try and stand and bang with Yuri, and Yuri's a crazy person, and so I think that Yuri's going to take all of Alex's best shots, and I think Yuri wins this fight via a knockout. I think I got 3rd round knockout by Yuri Prochazka to get his belt back.
Shally.
I'm going with Yuri as well. I was going to say 2nd round, but I'll just say 3rd round to be different than Cottrell.
I said 3rd.
Did you say 3rd? I'll go 2nd then. I kind of see it, similarly to Cottrell. I think he's a little bit of a wild card, a little bit crazy, very unorthodox. But that being said, if Pereira can't, land the right hand, then I don't know how else he's going to win this fight. So I'll go Yuri. I think it's probably a crazy fight to watch. I do think it'll be entertaining. It's definitely not going to be the most technical fight in the world, but I'll go Yuri to get his belt back, and then we'll see where we go from there in that division.
Where am I going, Cottrell? Since you know.
You got Pereira here. You got Pereira. You probably think he's the more technical kickboxer. You think there's going to be a fight that's on the feet, and you think Pereira is going to kick Yuri to death probably, and you ultimately think there's going to be a strike that puts out Yuri because he's so wild and doesn't protect his head.
That is exactly correct. I think that Yuri is an absolute wild card, and I think he just throws some crazy angles. And I watched him fight Glover Teixeira, and I'm like, man, Glover could have put him out multiple times. If he stands there and he does that wild stuff and gets caught by Alex Pereira, and it only needs to happen once, right? Alex is going to have the stamina advantage over Yuri. Alex is a lot more technical of a fighter than Yuri, and Alex has the more one-hitter quitter knockout power than Yuri. And I think Alex Pereira absolutely sleeps him. I think it's a 3rd round knockout, and I think it's a KO. I think Yuri is laid on the mat flat. I don't even think there needs to be a finish. Like a one-hitter quitter. Yuri might throw like a spinning kick, and then Alex Pereira is going to catch him with the overhand right, cold flush, like pick him, drag his carcass off the mat.
Yeah, I mean,
you nailed it though. You know the way I think.
I do. I definitely do. And I think the one thing with Yuri, other thing too, you know I'm a Yuri guy. Like that's
do.
my guy. So not gonna pick against him in that fight, but I think he's also going to come in very motivated. Obviously, the injury that took him out for as long as it did, over a year at this point, I think he's going to be ready. And I love this fight being for that vacant belt. I think this was the best possible thing that the UFC could have done in that division.
There's really, it's funny. Like I looked at the undercard of this fight too. And like, is there any fights on the undercard that you even like, or just clearly like, I really need to see this fight?
Not that I really need to see, but I remember looking at it before. The last fight in the early prelims is actually a pretty decent fight. I forgot what it is. Is it Costa?
Yeah, it's Alessandro Costa versus Steve Urseg. It's a flyweight fight. Or are you talking about the Sabatini fight that got moved up to the main card?
I'm about to go look at it right now.
Sabatini got moved up to the main card. Diego Lopez versus Sabatini got moved up to the main card. Okay. That's what you're talking about. I got it. That's a great fight.
Yeah, that was originally the last fight on the early prelims.
Yeah, Pat Sabatini's a loss. He's a walking loss. Diego Lopez will beat him. He's plus 100. It's a win for Diego Lopez. Just book that one. Write it in. Add it to your parlay.
And there was another one, the Jared Gordon versus Mark Madsen at lightweight. I think that's going to be a pretty decent fight as well. Jared Gordon's like the journeyman guy who, he wins certain fights and then other ones doesn't look great. Mark Madsen's going to be your young up and coming guy. This could potentially be the fight that breaks him in the top 15 in lightweight. Like I think that's going to be a good fight on the early prelims.
Okay. I don't think there's many real fights that you need to watch on this card, but I'll watch it because I'm a degenerate. Let's get into You Gotta Be Kidding Me.
All right, so for me, I'm going back to the well just because there's more that keeps coming out to it. And this has absolutely nothing to do with Michigan. This is strictly Connor Stallions and him being an absolute lunatic. So regardless of how I feel about the sign stealing, regardless about how I feel, whatever else he was doing that Harbaugh did or didn't know about, the latest news that came out is that this guy has an LLC with Michigan's starting running back, Blake Corum, out in Wyoming. Well, they asked Blake Corum about it, and they were like, hey, why are you in business with this guy? Like, what kind of business do you do? Why are you associated with him? All these kinds of things. And Blake Corum's response was, I don't have any business deals or anything to do with Connor Stallions outside of him being a part of the Michigan football program. And so for me, I 100% believe Blake Corum here because his name is clearly on the document. So if you wanted to say that, it's not you, your name's there. So we can easily fact check that and go about, who signed it, things like that. So I 100% believe Blake Corum here because that's not a position that you can be in and double down. I think Connor Stallions 1,000% forged his signature on some things, wrote his name down, and said, hey, he probably started this business. And he's like, hey, the guy who was in the Heisman race last year, that's my business partner. I'm sure you guys want to do business with us here. So for me this week, Connor Stallions being the absolute lunatic that he is, forging Blake Corum's name on his LLC and thinking that he was going to get away with it.
You gotta be kidding me.
I have one. I will tell you this. The Connor Stallions thing is, I can't wait till the whatchamacallit becomes public and like everybody can actually get their hands on it and read it, because I think there's going to be absolute mind like bending crazy shit in that. I think somebody said it's like 500 pages.
It is in the manifesto.
Yeah. it is. I am intrigued myself to read that.
If he you don't have one this week,
what? No,
you don't have one this week.
If he was a smart man, what he would do is he obviously it's the court documents now. If he was a smart man, what he'd do? He'd find a publisher and he'd sell it.
Is there anybody that's ever had a good manifesto? Like, is there anybody that's had like a manifesto that was just like?
Well, no. Yeah. See, that's the thing. Like there's certain people that have like leaked some of it and seen some of it, or like some of it's actually not crazy at all. Like he legit like wanted to become a football coach and like coach Michigan one day. Like Dabo Sweeney has a very popular one that like he like at a very young age, he started one and kept adding to it, and then obviously became the head coach of Clemson. His is obviously probably a little bit more sane and like rooted in reality than Connor Stallions was, but there's like good ones out there. I mean, but it's I agree with you. I mean, there's enough people that would absolutely pay $20 to buy that thing and read it, because I know there's crazy crap in it. There has to be, just from like some of the excerpts that have been leaked, just over the moon shit. Like it's bad. It's whatever.
My you got to be kidding me this week is J.C. Jackson and Jack Jones of the New England Patriots, who have both been demoted from the depth chart. J.C. Jackson will not travel with the New England Patriots to Germany, as him and Jack Jones both miss curfew. You're talking about a guy, J.C. Jones, you're talking about a guy in J.C. Jackson who got paid a ton of money from his success from New England in Los Angeles. Los Angeles basically gave him away back to New England. He's back with New England. He's back with his coach. Now he's missing curfew. It's almost like this guy seems like he's big timing everyone and really not taking his job as an NFL cornerback serious. Bill Belichick doesn't stand for that. And all of a sudden, he's no longer on the depth chart. You never know. This guy could be released by the New England Patriots soon. And then you're dealing with a whole nother world of issues. J.C. Jackson, Jack Jones, both missed curfew. So for that week, this week, that's my you got to be kidding me.
You gotta be kidding me.
It's crazy to think like just 2 years ago, like he was like one of like the prized free agents when the Chargers got him, and now he's getting in trouble and forcing himself out of football. It's wild.
It's correct. Any final comments today? Any final thoughts?
No, I got nothing. Jack Jones, didn't he get in trouble earlier in the year as well?
Yes, he did.
Like DUI or something? Something crazy.
Well, I'm kind of glad we have no final thoughts because we're right up against it. So thank you for tuning in this week's episode of Wire2Wire Sports Podcast, episode 161. I'm the NFL genius, Gene Walzak. That's College Cottrell. That's Scholastic Shout. He's going to be really mad next week when Michigan loses. And we are signing out.